plan to begin with, so I've been kind of putting it off.
Okay, look, I've been gone a while, I know, I'm sorry. This video realistically should have been out a lot sooner, but hear me out. I briefly touched on why I was hesitant to make this ranking in my best player video, but to reiterate, I've kind of been put off by Sam and Kat. Part of that is because of Jeanette McCurdy's memoir, which revealed how awful her experience was on the show, and of course that extends to pretty much any Dan Schneider project, but Sam and Kat seem to have it the worst. The other reason, well, from what I remember, the show just isn't very good, at least when compared to iCarly and Victorious. So I never really felt a strong desire to rewatch the whole thing just to do a ranking. My channel, you may have noticed, has also over these last couple of months been going through a serious identity crisis. I mean, since my iCarly video, I've done an entire rebrand of the channel with an OC and changed up how I edit my videos, among other things. And I won't get too deep into it, but it's still a work in progress. The main gist is I find myself making small improvements every video, and to have a huge ranking video in the midst of this experimental arc just wouldn't have felt right. But now I feel like my channel is in a good spot, and I've kind of figured out my style a little bit more. And what better way to embrace this era than to stick to my roots and do the long awaited Sam and Kat ranking. So again, I apologise for the wait, but hey, better late than never, right? Now, this video is merely a ranking video, so I won't dive too deep into the lore of Sam and Kat and how it came to be and things like that. I'd recommend Quinton Reviews videos if that's what you're looking for, because they go insanely in depth about that kind of stuff. I will instead just rank every episode in my personal opinion from least favourite to most, and providing my reasons as to why I've placed each episode where I have. For a little bit of context in case you don't remember Sam and Kat too well, it is a show set after the events of both iCarly and Victorious, with Sam Puckett from the former playing a central role here alongside Kat Valentine, the obnoxious yet weirdly lovable ditzy side character from the latter. The episodes revolve around these two girls being roommates and running a babysitting service, with this kid in the same building named Dice frequently coming in with a problem that needs solving, mostly because he gets involved in activities that he's way too young for. This kid also manages this airheaded MMA fighter named Goomer, who makes frequent appearances too from time to time. Oh, and Kat Nona, played by Marie Cheetham, is also a recurring side character, mostly for gags of her being too old and not understanding anything, because sitcom humour. That's the basic premise, and it's pretty lacking. It never really explores Sam's whole internet fame angle or Kat's talent for singing and acting. Instead, it relies heavily on this babysitting gimmick to give these two very different characters something to do. What could have been a fascinating follow-up ended up being, well, Sam and Kat. It's a bit of a shame, but all we can do now is look back at it, analyse the flaws, and remind ourselves why some spin-offs probably shouldn't happen. Anyway, with all that said, let's dive into this ranking. So, my least favourite episode of the series is #stuck in a box. You know how iCarly had that quirky thing where all the episode titles started with I, like the show itself? Well, in Sam and Kat, all the episode titles start with a hashtag. Why? I honestly have no clue. The weird thing behind this decision is that this show has very little to do with the internet. If anything, Victorious, which didn't even have a title gimmick, should have used hashtags instead, because it had those tweet-style intermissions and way more connections to internet culture and fame. But it's Sam and Kat that has this gimmick, whether I'm a fan of it or not. Now, it should really come as no surprise as to why this dogshit lazy episode is right at the bottom. The entire plot was written to work around Ariana's recording sessions for her My Everything album at the time, because I assume they couldn't skip shooting that week and so absolutely needed an episode no matter how awful it would turn out. And that really shows despite their attempt at making a workable plot. The episode opens with Sam mentioning how she has free tickets for this theme park called Mystic Mountain, and Kat is eager to go. Dice and Goomer walk in with a box that Dice claims can make someone disappear. Kat gets in, but when Dice tries to open it up, it's sealed shut. and to make matters worse, the handle comes right off. This is the last time we see Ariana in person in this episode. Her inclusions afterwards are just voice lines. They all go to Bots, this gimmicky restaurant we see throughout the show with robot waiters, to think of ideas, and they feed Kat some fries through the hole. The next day, Dice says that he knows a person who can open the box, this famous teenage magician named Vance Anderson. But Dice isn't a fan of him because he pokes fun at him for being a terrible magician. With no other choice though, they go to the shop and we see Vance Anderson, who is played by Shane Topp of Smosh, to my surprise. I completely forgot he was in both this and iCarly. Vance agrees to open the box if he can get Dice's ticket to go to Mystic Mountain. Apparently, this entire time, the box could have been opened by a button on the back, and you'd think this episode would end happily, with Kat coming out and everyone going to Mystic Mountain, after getting rid of Vance somehow. But no, the button doesn't work when Dice tries it, and doesn't work when Vance does either. He says the box is defective but still wants to go to Mystic Mountain. He creepily flirts with Sam, gets his ass beat as a result, and the gang heads to Mystic Mountain in Kat's brother's car, with Kat still in the box. They hit a speed bump, the box falls out, and that's how the episode ends. Yeah, this episode is atrocious. What's crazy is even if I didn't know the context behind why this episode is so damn ass, I still would have placed it right at the bottom. What a substanceless episode, with no satisfying conclusion. How does Kat get freed in the end? We don't know, and never find out either. It's so funny how they made Sam and Kat to kind of rectify things with how Victorious abruptly ended and the mistakes made on that show, but they end up coming out with episodes like this with zero continuity that are somehow worse than those Victorious ones, with this show in the end also getting cancelled and suffering the same fate. So, Dan Schneider, was all of this really worth it? As we learn from Jeanette's memoir, the way Ariana was allowed absences when Jeanette wasn't is shitty, and this episode being the kind of epitome of that just makes me dislike it so much more. So yeah, I have no issues with placing this right at the bottom. By the way, is this the only instance of Kat singing on this show? At number 34 is hashtag first class problems. And this episode isn't the worst premise-wise, I guess, but it's just so damn frustrating for me to enjoy it or ever rewatch it again. Sam and Kat babysit these snobby rich kids known as the Bombs. They make out-of-touch comments and wear timers due to their busy schedules. A guy comes in to pick them up and tells the girls that the Bombs' parents would like them to escort the children to the Bahamas, providing tickets for free. Sam isn't interested, but Kat is as soon as she hears that they'll be flying first class. At the airport, Kat keeps mentioning the fact that they're flying first class, and I would make a comment about how annoying this is, but this dude does a good job of that already.
First class. Shut up!
The girls and the kids get through security, and Dice and Goomer come to the airport bringing the kids timers that the girls had left behind on accident. Goomer yells, "We brought the timers for the bombs!" Which of course isn't exactly something you want to hear at an airport, and so security takes them in for questioning. The girls and the kids on the other hand try not to get involved and so proceed on over to the waiting room. Kat drones on about first class again, which got old the moment it was first brought up, though I'll admit
Disgusting. Move, come on.
Was funnier than it needed to be. During questioning, Dice and Goomer have many opportunities to clarify what they meant, but of course in sitcom fashion, it never gets clarified. Goomer does most of the talking, which naturally isn't helpful, but as soon as Dice tries to speak, he gets repeatedly cut off, which really started to grind my gears. Like, oh my god, let the kid speak. To make things worse, as soon as we think he's finally getting somewhere, Goomer starts mocking him and the two start yelling gibberish at each other. Goomer asks for chocolate milk, one of the interrogators reluctantly complies, and Goomer ends up tossing the milk in their faces and making a run for it. I'm sorry, but what? If these guys had just explained who the bombs were, they would have been fine. There's zero logical reason as to why they would make a run for it. Yes, I know it's Guma and his mind doesn't work the same, but still, even this is pushing it for him. Meanwhile, the girls wait to board the plane. A woman named Coco Wexler starts speaking to them, who is a character from Zoe 101, but that's a show I've never seen before, so all of the references completely go over my head here. It's finally time to board the plane, and the joke is that first class isn't actually boarding the plane first, and all these other people in the most obscure categories like anyone with a pet gets to go before, and it's as stupid as it sounds. The big conclusion is because Dice and Guma made a run for it, the interrogators call for a lockdown of the airport, and the girls get blocked from boarding the plane because of this, right when first class is allowed in. Holy shit, what an irritating episode. In some ways, it falls in, characters get stuck in one location for the whole episode and need to find a way to get to their intended destination, territory, which I'm sure you've heard me complain about a million times in the past, but that isn't an excuse for this episode being so bad. I critique that trope because it's lazy and very rarely makes for an interesting watch, and this episode is no exception. In fact, it's arguably worse than how the trope normally goes because the characters don't even get their win in the end. Yes, we can assume they do end up going to the Bahamas after the lockdown is lifted, but still, I shouldn't have to assume that. Especially when the next episode isn't even remotely related to this plotline. What's the point of watching characters get inconvenienced throughout the whole episode if there's no payoff? Like genuinely, after a certain point, I didn't even want to finish this episode because that's how much it was annoying me. And no show should really make you feel that way, regardless of if it's a teen sitcom or not. So yeah, for that reason, this episode is at 34, even if I'm being overly passionate about my disdain for it. At number 33 is #MadAboutShoe, which is probably the stupidest premise this entire show has to offer. The episode opens with Sam eating a whole tub of meatballs, and Kat comes in revealing that those meatballs were meant for their throbbing moon party. Kat says that she won't be making more meatballs, but Sam convinces her that she should, and she agrees only if Sam comes with her to buy the ingredients for it. The girls are on their way, but Kat is distracted by a pink shoe that she sees in a bush. She puts it on and loves it, with it fitting her perfectly, and so she absolutely needs to find the other shoe. Oh yeah, and throughout this show there is this really strange repeated gag of this one guy who looks homeless but is actually rich. I've never really found it funny any of the times he shows up. I'd say Sinjin jokes from Victorious are probably the most similar to these, but at least those made sense. This is just completely random. After failing to find the shoe in a bin, Kat pulls out an investigation board and drags Dice into this to find the other shoe. Sam, on the other hand, is tired of Kat getting so invested in this shoe nonsense, and so she finds another way to get meatballs made. She buys all the ingredients after looking at online recipes and invites over Nona to make them for her, pretending that the reason she was invited was for some girl time. Nona begins happily talking to Sam about her past, but leaves when she finds out the actual reason she was invited. Kat, with the help of Dice, finds the exact location of the other shoe, but before he can reveal it, Dice says probably the most real thing ever.
Hey, stop! I can't take all the screaming! Oh, shh. Sometimes you guys just get so intense.
We find that while filming for a show, this girl ends up getting in an accident that caused her shoe to get flown off her foot, and so the other shoe must still be with her, but she is hospitalized. Dice again spits some facts.
Does anyone say please anymore? Come on, guys.
Sam condemns the act of stealing the other shoe considering the girl is in terrible condition, but immediately loses all humanity when Kat reminds her about the meatballs. The girls end up finding the shoe, and turns out the owner of it is Stacey Dilson, another Zoe 101 character who's made an appearance on iCarly before, so her not being able to recognize Sam is crazy retconning. She notices that Kat is stealing her shoe, but instead of her realizing that she's doing something wrong, Kat makes fun of Stacey's speech impediment, which I'll admit is a wild shtick to have as a character, but considering Zoe 101 is a much older show, it makes a little more sense, and she runs away, with Sam following her. The episode ends with all the characters watching the throbbing moon while eating meatballs, with Kat wearing both pink shoes. I'm sorry, but what the fuck was this? You can't expect me to root for Kat when she's objectively a terrible person here, to the point where even Sam disagrees. I don't care for her selfish need to have these shoes. I just don't. And to see her not suffer any negative consequences for this reveals to me that the writers thought this was a good thing for her to achieve as a character. It's lazy all around and I couldn't care less for it. Which is why I'm placing this episode at 33. At 32 is #GetInWiggy, the unintended finale of the entire show, and what a brilliant note to end on, am I right? The episode opens with Kat revealing that she's going to Arizona with Dice for a hair modeling gig, and so she'll be gone for a couple of days. Nona comes over and asks if she can stay at the apartment while her care home Elderly Acres has an infestation of some kind. I found it so bizarre that Nona is asking to stay in an apartment that was and basically still is hers. This might be a culture thing, but if there's an instance where you need to stay with a relative, especially if you're a grandmother to that relative, the permission is granted by default. This isn't a critique, it's just something I picked up on that I found interesting. Nona is of course happy to be roommates with Sam, but she doesn't feel the same way. At the gig, Dice is stoked to be guaranteed the cover of a magazine, but the photographer says that there's been a change, and he'll choose himself who gets the cover. Things still seemed a little hopeful for Dice, until this kid named Jet Xander walks in with luxurious blonde locks. Back in LA, Sam walks into the apartment to find Nona preparing pretty much all of her favourite foods, which makes her cry tears of joy. Dice and all the other hair models take a bunch of pictures, and the next day it'll be announced who gets the cover. Dice already knows that Jet is going to get it with how chummy the photographer is being with him. And Kat tells him that she knows for sure that Jet is wearing a wig and doesn't understand why everyone is making a big deal out of his hair, even though she did the exact thing she's critiquing as soon as he entered the building. The next day, her and Dice try to find a way to expose Jet, and I think now is a good time to mention the flanderization of Kat Valentine, something I very briefly touched on in my victorious ranking. I knew I wanted to talk about this at some point in this video, but I had no idea it would be this early on, but after watching through this episode, I just have to talk about it. Flanderization, if you're unfamiliar with the term, just simply refers to the phenomenon in media when a character's essential traits become so exaggerated to the point where those traits become that character's entire personality. The term, of course, originating from The Simpsons, where Ned Flanders progressively changes over the show. It's a thing that oftentimes can't be helped, and poor writing isn't always the sole cause of it, but in Dan Schneider shows, I think it's safe to say it is the sole cause of it. Kat Valentine in season 1 of Victorious, pre-lobotomy Kat as a lot of people like to say, was this slightly airheaded girl, like we'd expect, but was a lot more than just that. She spoke and walked normally, had a bit of a bipolar personality, dressed in a very alternative bordering on scene aesthetic, and was just much more likeable. Over the course of the show, she lost a lot of that charm, becoming a whole lot dumber, completely dropping the bipolarness, dressing in a much more feminine way, developing a higher pitched voice, etc. And it was pretty bad in that show, but still tolerable for the most part. In Sam and Kat, it's that times 100, and episodes like this one are good examples of that. Tell me why in this scene where she tries to get Jet Xander's attention, does she walk like this, like she's a literal toddler? And the facial expression she makes too, oh my god, how is this real, and how is this the same character? Dan Schneider, you are a very, very sick individual, because I know damn well he was behind all of this, so please don't mistake this for Ariana shade or anything like that. I can't imagine what she must have gone through. Man, watching this makes me so uncomfortable, and it's a 2-second scene, that's the worst part of it all. Sorry, rant out of the way, it just needed to be addressed though. Anyway, she gets Jet to come over. Dice puts on a huge fan to try to blow off what is allegedly a wig. The plan fails and completely backfires, with the photographer loving how Jet's hair looks after the fan blew it in a certain way. The winner is later announced to be Jet. No surprises there, which causes Kat to unusually snap and tells him to admit that he's wearing a wig. He of course denies it, and so Kat pulls at his hair to the point where she tears it out like an absolute rabid animal, coming to the realization his hair was real all along. So when the writers wrote this up, and the shoe episode, and every other episode where Kat does some selfish act to make her look like a piece of shit, do they expect the audience to side with her and brush it off as, oh, that's just quirky Kat, that's just how she is. She's so crazy, love her. Cause maybe that would have worked when I was 12, but my god, I just can't stand it. How is Sam, a girl who has a criminal record mind you, much more civilized than Kat? In this show, where the dynamic is Kat is the quote-unquote good one, it's just not adding up. Kat gets arrested, feeling no remorse mind you, and that's how that plot ends. The Nona-Sam subplot also involved Nona offering to babysit some kids on Sam's behalf and doing her laundry before Sam even asks her to do it. She also later covers for her when the building manager comes in and asks about Sam not paying her half of the rent. Sam enjoyed Nona's company a lot more than she thought she would have, even going as far as to say that Nona was the best roommate she's ever had. Sam is told by Dice that Kat will be arrested for 2 weeks, and as Nona is getting ready to move back to Elderly Acres, Sam makes up a story that Kat and Dice decided to stay in Arizona, and so Nona should stay to look after her. This works, and Nona starts preparing dinner immediately, concluding the episode and the entire show as a whole. How is it that this subplot, which is pretty mediocre with a couple of fun moments between Sam and Nona, the best part of this entire episode? How on earth would they make a plot this episodic so close to the show's end? Granted, the show getting cancelled was completely abrupt, but surely there were signs, right? Why greenlight something this dogshit? In some ways, I'm glad this show ended in such a messy way though. A fumble for Dan Schneider is a win in my books. This episode can very comfortably sit at 32. At number 31 is hashtag blooper episode. Yes, this is the actual title. We used to be a proper country. I mean, you all know the drill by now. The blooper episode is always towards the bottom of the list, right? To be honest though, out of all the blooper episodes that we've seen, this might actually be the best formatted one. You know, none of this condescending Christopher Kane bullshit that was forced on us twice. It follows all the actors playing themselves being seated at a restaurant together, except for Guma, or Zoran I should say, who isn't technically main cast. The whole gag is that the actors never end up getting their food. A bunch of fans come over, praise the cast, ask to see behind the scenes stuff, and so we see things like bloopers, laughter moments, dance breaks, issues with props, that kind of thing. We also see robot moments, which aren't even bloopers, they're just actual moments from the show, and that's really about it. We see Sinjin again, which is pretty cool, but other than that, it's as interesting as a blooper episode can really get. And they really stretched it out too, to the point where you can tell that they didn't have enough material for a 20-minute episode, and so it's just kind of like a chore to sit through. I didn't hate it that much though, but I can't really see myself placing this any higher than 31. At number 30 is hashtag Yay Day, which, much like Getting Wiggy and Mad About Shu, is an episode that revolved around Kat being extremely selfish and getting away with it. Kat comes up with a holiday called Yay Day, which is all about giving presents, and everyone is getting involved except for Sam, who says that giving Kat presents is a bad idea because she'll snoop and open it before she can give it to her. Kat insists that she won't, and so Sam reluctantly decides to participate too. On Yay Day's Eve, Sam comes back with her presents, but Kat is already asking a ton of questions. Also, there's this really strange running joke in this episode where Dice asks if there's anything to drink and everyone just dehydrates him for some reason. It's incredibly strange and out of character for everyone involved, like my goodness, just let the boy have a drink. Anyway, at night while everyone's sleeping, Kat decides to check out what Sam's gift is, because she's so quirky she can't help herself. She opens the gift to find that Sam gave her mouthwash and foot wash. On Yay Day morning, Kat is moping around and hating on the day's existence because of the revelation. Everyone tells her that they're excited to open presents, and so Kat decides to take the gift that she wrapped for Sam to their bedroom. Homeless but not actually homeless guy comes to the window, and Kat decides to swap the leather jacket she was going to give Sam with a nasty stained pillow that the guy is holding. Sam opens it and is rightfully disappointed. Kat opens up her gift again, but Sam reveals that she got the label wrong, and it was actually a gift for Goomer, who's ecstatic about getting the washes. Sam gives Kat her true gift, which is a jump rope she really likes. To make matters worse, there's also a really sweet note written for Kat. Sam walks out. Kat finds her on a bench that she really likes, because it's situated near a crack in the footpath that causes people to trip over. She feels bad for giving her the pillow, and Sam tells her that the only reason she wasn't fond of presents in the first place was because of a terrible gift her mom gave her when she was 9. Kat apologizes and explains that she snooped, and Sam forgives her, and the episode ends. Yeah, this episode isn't very good. Sam goes out of her way to get presents and participates in Yay Day, only on the condition that Kat won't snoop this time, and she ends up snooping anyway. You know, there's being an airhead and doing stupid things because you genuinely don't know any better, and then there's consciously doing the wrong thing and knowing damn well it's wrong, but proceeding to do it anyway because you don't think of anyone but yourself. And oftentimes, that's what Kat does that makes her so unlikable in this show and the latter half of Victorious. This concluding moment that's supposed to be seen as sweet just feels so forced. I would have much rather preferred Kat getting a new present for Sam that she would actually like, or something along those lines. Not this half-baked apology that Sam really shouldn't have accepted. This, on top of the weird plot of dehydrating dice, makes this one of my least favourite episodes of this show. At 29 is hashtag Revenge of the Brit Brats, which feels weird to be talking about without mentioning its predecessor first, but I'll try to do a somewhat decent job of it anyway. The episode opens with a recap of what happened in the first episode with the Brit Brats, which really doesn't feel needed considering it was about 8 episodes ago. Also, this fourth wall breaking stuff really doesn't work for a sitcom like this, but minor gripes. The British girls Gwen and Ruby arrive at the girls' apartment. Kat freaks out, but Sam lets them in after they say they brought treats. They give Kat a can of Bibble, a fake British snack that we saw in Victorious, and Sam a motorcycle helmet that vibrates. The girls say that the reason they're doing this is because they feel bad for conning Kat and Dice in the last episode. That night, while everyone is watching a show on the TV, the two girls sneak into the apartment.
Oh, now I get it. It's funny because he's drowning. You know, it's funny because he's drowning.
Is the most Gravity Falls-esque joke I've heard, and I couldn't help but chuckle. The girls find Kat's Bibble and plant some crumbs onto Sam's bed to get the two of them to argue with each other. Why? To get back at them for conning them back, even though at the end of that episode the girls don't even realize that they've been conned. I don't know, unlike previous villains we've had on iCarly like Neville and Nora, these British girls really don't have a strong motive to explain what they're doing, and it seems like they were written in just to create some kind of threat in this world, and it isn't very effective in this episode in my opinion. Moving on, Kat goes to her room to find her Bibble is missing and freaks out. And sorry to interrupt again, but man, Kat is so insufferable in this episode. It seems like I'm an absolute Kat hater with how much I've been shitting on this character these last couple of minutes, but believe me, most of the times she's actually bearable. It just so happens that in the episodes I dislike the most, she is unlikable the most. Maybe because I rewatched this show in separate days, but in this episode, she's just more annoying than usual. It could very well just be me though. Anyway, Kat spots the Bibble crumbs on Sam's bed and the two girls argue. That same night, the British girls sneak in once again and decide to paint Sam's motorcycle pink, and put some pink paint in Kat's hand to frame her. Sam wakes up, blames Kat, and walks out to control her anger. She goes to Goomer's gym after yanking out a parking meter, but still is pretty angry, and so decides to spar someone, and pretty easily knocks out a professional. Okay, I get that it's Sam and all, but there's no way that would happen in real life. Sam, with the help of Gooma, and Kat, with the help of Nona, put 2 and 2 together and figure out that the British girls were behind it all, and about damn time, because how did it actually take them this long to figure it out? Also, watching this made me realize that Gooma being a stupid character really makes no sense when Kat already fills that void. Heck, they even reused a line from Victorious.
But what if she's not there?
I think Kat just said something pretty smart.
Goomer, you just said something smart.
God, this show is so lazy. The girls' plan to get the Brit Brats back is by making them think that they really hate each other. And after convincing them that Sam murdered Kat, they turn on each other for taking it too far. This results in the girls brawling it out and Sam and Kat moving on with their lives. To be honest, this episode isn't outright terrible, but I genuinely don't understand why it exists. The original Brit Brats was a pretty fun episode, but it never felt like something that needed a sequel. I guess those characters were fan favourites or something, because the writers clearly felt the need to bring them back, and the result is this mess. They even altered the dynamic between the 2 British girls, with one of them now low-key bullying the other, which just feels really off. Combine that with a pretty weak premise overall, and there's really nothing here that stands out, which is why it lands at number 29. At number 28 is #MyPooba, one of the most forgettable episodes of this series. Sam and Kat have saved a lot of money from babysitting and so decide to keep their money in a safe disguised as a pineapple, as Sam doesn't trust keeping the money in a bank. She makes Kat promise that she won't tell anyone about the secret. At the door is the mom of a girl that they'll be babysitting, who explains to the girls that her daughter Ellie is unhealthily attached to an old stuffed animal named Pooba. I can't be the only one who notices the main characters on this show being incredibly rude to people that they just met. Like, explain to me how saying,
Aw, that's sweet. Now get to the point.
or
Wow, you've been talking a long time.
makes any sense in this scenario. Like, damn, the woman is explaining a situation regarding her daughter who you'll be responsible for. Why the hell would you say something so dismissive and impatient? It's just so unnecessary in my opinion, but hey, maybe I'm just a bit soft. Anyway, the woman offers Sam and Kat an additional $500 if they are able to separate Ellie from Pooba. Ellie knows how her parents operate and so isn't likely to listen to what Sam and Kat have to say. At Bots, the 2 girls try to snatch Pooba away, but this fails. Back at the apartment, Sam goes to cool off by beating her hitting tree, and Kat asks why Ellie is so obsessed with Pooba in the first place. She tells her that it's a secret, and so Kat says that she'll tell her a secret in exchange. That secret, of course, being the fact that the pineapple has money in it. Ellie tells Kat that the only reason why she always carries Pooba around is because he is her only friend. And so Kat tells her that she might have more friends if she didn't carry him around. This works, surprisingly, and once Sam returns, she gets the idea to send Pooba to outer space, so he's gone for good. Gooma and Dice set up a rocket, and Ellie asks if she can be alone with Pooba for a little bit. In this time, the gang doesn't keep an eye on Ellie, and once the rocket is sent up, she reveals that she swapped out Pooba for the pineapple. Turns out though that the rocket doesn't actually go up into space, and after about 1,000 feet, it'll land with a parachute, with a GPS tracking device within it. On the drive to the rocket, Sam realizes that Kat told Ellie about the pineapple, and that's it. There's no conflict about that like you'd expect there to be. The rocket landed in a cemetery, and inside a shack, we find that one guy who was in the Pear Store episode of iCarly working there. He ended up shooting the rocket with his shotgun after getting scared, and so the money now has bullet holes. Ellie asks to be taken home, but the gang decide to make a run for it, concluding the episode. Quick question, how is Sam and Kat's babysitting service rated highly? Yeah, this one's just a bit weird. The Pooba plot, which the episode is named after, doesn't really go anywhere or get wrapped up in a satisfying way. The thing is, this episode could have actually been okay if they had taken the time to properly resolve the main conflict. Instead, we get 2 completely unrelated storylines, one about Puba and the other about the money secret, sloppily thrown together with a rushed ending, making it feel like the writers had no idea how to tie it all up. Not a very good one all around. At number 27 is hashtag motorcycle mystery. I think we're now in the territory of episodes that aren't necessarily the worst, but just aren't very good either, and have close to zero memorable moments. The episode opens with Sam cleaning off the pink from her motorcycle, which is appreciated continuity, I will say. Dice and Guma come by, excited to see a fighting match with Sam. Kat won't be going because she needs to study for a test. Dice gives her a drink that will help her focus and have a better memory. The gang comes back from the fight to find Kat fast asleep with blue hair while handcuffed to some foreign guy. Sam loses it when she realizes her motorcycle isn't home. She wakes up Kat, who can't seem to remember anything, and Dice tells her that she wasn't supposed to drink the entire bottle of the drink that he gave her. Kat gets a text from Nona, which is a photo of her with blue hair also, and so they all decide to head to Elderly Acres to find answers. Yeah, so this whole episode is basically just the characters retracing their steps to find out what happened to the motorcycle, and admittedly that could have made for an interesting episode, but this really failed to engage me. The reason Kat's hair is blue is because of a service being held at the care home, and the motorcycle was taken by one of the residents because Kat wanted to go see the MMA fight, but needed someone to ride her there. The guy wanted to get some food first though, and so Kat and Sam head on over to Bots to see if they can find answers there. They ask one of the robots to see the CCTV footage, and for some reason it just shows it to them, no questions asked. We find out that Kat and the elderly guy ran into John Zacapa at the restaurant, the same guy that Guma ended up beating in a previous episode. He wants revenge, and so takes the bike keys from Kat's hand and steals it from the car park, but Kat just about manages to steal his small friend before he escapes with him. They all arrange to meet in an alleyway, and Sam gets her motorcycle back from Zacapa, but before he can take his friend Hector and part ways, Sam tackles him to the ground and tells Kat to take Hector back to the apartment. The episode ends with Hector reading bedtime stories to the girls. There's really not a lot to say about this episode. It's a basic premise that was executed semi-poorly, and while the plot is slightly more coherent than some others, the episode is just painfully average for me to care about. At 26 is hashtag babysitting commercial. The episode opens with everyone gathering around to watch Sam and Kat's new advertisement for their babysitting service, which is extremely goofy and if anything is a reason to not send your kids to them. A family comes in claiming that the dog shown in the commercial, Dice's dog Opie, is actually theirs and they need him for their dog dancing competition. The dad of the family confirms this to be true with a video. Dice suggests that they put Opie in the middle of the room and whoever he goes to gets to keep him, and of course he runs straight to Dice. The family says that they'll be back with a court order, and so the gang will be forced to give back Opie, or Cornelius as the family calls him. Sam and Kat decide to head to a pet adoption center to get a dog that looks similar to Opie so that they can give it to the family. The guy working at the adoption center is really desperate for sales, and I couldn't help but laugh at.
I liked him better with his sweater on.
We all did.
They find a dog that looks exactly like Opie and decide to take him, despite him being pretty dangerous. The family take the dog, meaning the plan worked, and it's revealed that the competition is happening that very same night. Sam, Kat, and Dice watch the competition on TV, and sure enough, the dog doesn't participate and gets violent as soon as Alexa picks him up, concluding the episode. Now this one isn't terrible by any means. It's passable and has a couple of funny moments, but overall it's pretty low stakes and doesn't offer anything that really sticks with you. Kinda wish we saw the dog more on this show though. At 25 is hashtag PZB. The episode opens with Kat dressed differently, ready for an audition for a music video for this artist named PZB. Sam doesn't want to babysit alone, but Kat reassures her that she'll be back by the afternoon. After the intro, everyone's eating at Bots and Kat comes in crying, saying that PZB was really mean to her. Kat asks if he at least signed her ping pong ball, but Kat reveals that he squished it instead. This angers Sam and she requests butter so she can make her signature butter sock. An appreciated callback, I will say. We find out that PZB is actually played by Kel Mitchell, known for his many Nickelodeon roles in the past. He unreasonably fires his assistant for not getting him a drink, and Sam shows up to confront him about being mean to Kat. She pinches Peasy's friend Bunny, slaps him with some grapes, and drops his phone in a fish tank, and all of this makes him think that Sam is cool. Also, I just realised that the drink he's blabbing on about is supposed to be ginger ale. How did I not catch that first time? Anyway, he asks Sam to be his new assistant, but she declines, until she hears that she'll be paid $1,200 a week. She comes home and breaks the news to Kat, who seems upset, but Sam reassures her that she'll manage to balance babysitting with the new job, but Peasy needs her immediately. We find that Sam's new job as an assistant is consuming all of her time, and Kat is getting tired of babysitting on her own. Sam tells her that she's busy though, and continues to listen to Peasy's new song. He then tells her that he needs more piranha fish because Kanye, yikes that's aged bad, has one more than him. Meanwhile, Dice and Goomer go to the apartment to check up on Kat, who's been taped to a broom. They offer to help, but after Dice sees a text message from Sam saying that she needs piranha fish, him and Goomer decide to leave. That same night, Sam comes home to explain herself, but finds out that everything is under control at the apartment. Turns out that Kat called a friend named Mindy to help out with the kids. Sam is furious about this and the two start arguing. Sam ends up putting Mindy to sleep with this elbow trick. Yeah, I don't understand it either. Mid-argument, PZB shows up and tells Sam that they need to go to Acapulco to get some animal, and Sam decides to quit on the spot. PZ says that he needs an assistant, and so Kat suggests Mindy instead, and they end up taking her while she's still unconscious. The episode ends with Sam and Kat making up, and Sam puts the two boys that they're supposed to be babysitting to sleep. Yeah, this one is pretty mid and rubs me the wrong way. Don't get me wrong, Kel Mitchell was funny and all of his yes men glazing him non-stop was fun too, but beyond that, there's really not much going on. The episode is bizarrely mean-spirited, especially towards Kat, who gets neglected by everyone and ends up having to fend for herself. And poor Mindy, man. She comes over to help out a friend, only to end up unconscious and essentially kidnapped to be someone's assistant without her consent. I get that it's a sitcom and all, but that's just really fucking weird. Overall, the story feels disjointed and mean for no reason, which is why this episode sits at 25. At 24 is #BrainCrush. The episode opens at Bots, where there's a birthday party for a kid that Sam and Kat babysit. However, they quickly notice how everyone is hooked to their phones. Dice quickly realizes it's because of this new game called Brain Crush, and Nona naturally asks what that is. To which Dice replies with,
You don't know much, do you?
Yeah, there's this running joke from the last couple of episodes where Nona asks about things that are unfamiliar to her, of course being from a whole different generation, and everyone is just super mean to her about it. Like seriously, how is she supposed to know these things? Anyway, after the intro, Sam tries to repair the front door after she kicked it down off screen, while Kat gets ready for her one-woman show. She's about to head to Elderly Acres to do her laundry, and Sam decides that she should get Nona to do hers as well, and so she retrieves her clothes. Dice arrives completely hooked to Brain Crush as well. So obsessed with the game, he doesn't even react when Sam hits him in the head with a pillow. Oh, I get it. The game is called Brain Crush because that's what it does to its players. Very subtle. Dice's phone is about to die. They make a meta joke about how Apple frequently, or at least used to frequently, change the charging cord, and so he runs through the front door while Sam is still repairing it, smushing the fingers on both of her hands. Sam and Kat arrive at Elderly Acres for their laundry, with Sam's hands now wrapped up in bandages, but all the elderlies there, including Nona, are hooked to their phones as well. Kat does her Abraham Lincoln play, and I would ask why she's putting on a British accent, but Nona does that for me. No one pays attention to Kat, One of the audience members tells her to shut up, and everyone agrees, which makes zero sense considering they're the ones who pay to be there, and Kat runs backstage upset. Sam tells her to continue the play, but Kat really doesn't want to if no one will pay attention, which gives Sam the idea to get the karate kids from the dojo next door to smash all the phones. Back at the apartment, Kat struggles to get her beard off because she used grizzly glue. Do these writers just love being inconsistent or something? Nona rips it off and we get this corny, ironic message about how everyone spends so much time on their phones, and the episode ends with everyone watching TV to comedically contradict that. I don't really know how to feel about this one. On one hand, I actually liked seeing Kat perform in a play again. She's supposed to be a Hollywood art student after all, and I think this is literally the only episode that shows her doing anything remotely artistic. So I'll give it some credit for that. But overall, the plot relies way too much on this lazy satire that doesn't really work in my opinion, and as a result makes the episode feel pretty dull. Far from the worst episode of all time, but not particularly a standout either. At 23 is hashtag texting competition, which might shock some people because this is a fan favourite, at least I assume it to be considering it was one of the few episodes I actually remembered liking, but it was pretty disappointing on the rewatch. The episode opens with Sam and Kat babysitting this kid named Butler who's really good at texting fast and is competing on the weekend, so he needs to prepare well. This is also the first episode with Randy, so that's cool. He's this really fun, reoccurring character that says his name every time we see him. It's a simple gimmick, sure, but I definitely like him a lot more than that Herb guy. Anyway, while practicing, it turns out that Sam is pretty damn fast at typing too, and Kat tells her that she should also compete, but she really doesn't want to. After seeing the prize for winning is a speedboat, Kat begs her even more. Butler's mom arrives and we find that she's really uptight about Butler's texting in a weird way. She finds it laughable that Sam might participate too, and it's revealed the only reason she wanted Butler to win so bad is to meet the vice president, who was Joe Biden at the time. Sam, Kat, and Dice head to the competition so Sam can sign up. Dice sees an old friend of his named BJ who likes to eat eggs and copy everything he says, and despite trying to ignore him, Sam calls him over. The competition starts, and after a couple of rounds, we find that Sam and Butler make it to the finals. For some reason, after this, both Sam and Kat decide to eat a bunch of corn dogs and go to sleep, which results in Butler's mom sneaking into the room that they're in and gluing Sam's hand to Kat's foot. It's now the finals, and with Sam being disadvantaged, it's looking like she'll have to forfeit. But turns out there's no rule against texting one-handed, and so she competes anyway, much to Butler's mom's dismay. Sam wins after Butler purposefully drops his phone to rebel against his mother. He wins the prize for second place, which is a bike of his own. Sam wins the first place prize, which is the speedboat, but it's just a toy. The episode ends with the two girls at their apartment playing with the toy speedboat while ignoring calls from Joe Biden. This episode was not what I remembered. Butler's mom is way too over the top and cartoonishly villainous for the premise to feel even remotely grounded. Also, the idea that second place gets a better prize than first is pretty dumb, even by this show's logic. And while I'll give the episode credit for tackling something pretty unique, you know, there aren't exactly many sitcom episodes about speed texting competitions, it doesn't really do anything interesting with that. It had serious potential and there are some elements I did enjoy, but the execution left a lot to be desired, which is why it lands here at number 23. At 22 is hashtag favourite show, the second ever episode of this series. The episode opens with Sam and Kat watching their favourite show, That's a Drag. They point out how the laptop on that show uses a banana logo instead of a pear because haha, this universe does the same thing. After school, Kat comes home really upset because it's been announced that That's a Drag has been cancelled, and if you thought that Apple meta joke was pretty bad, this...
Why? The show's a big hit! What kind of TV network cancels a big hit?
It's insane. They're not even gonna do a big final episode.
What?
is a million times worse. I find it so funny how they wrote this in with such confidence, poking fun at Victorious' abrupt ending, in a way acting like this show was going to last a good while. Like, holy shit, in retrospect, you look stupid as hell. Anyway, the kids they're supposed to be babysitting arrive, and one of them has severe attachment issues and the other is super mouthy. Sam finds out where That's a Drag is filmed, and they decide to head on over there to save the show. On the set, Kat confronts the producer and yells at him. One of the kids ends up climbing up into a stage light somehow, and Sam tries to deal with that while Kat follows the producer out of the building and jumps on his car. Sam chops the rope the light is hanging from to get the kid down, and he gets up without a scratch on him. At the apartment, Kat returns looking super upset, and so Sam decides to head back to the studio, taking Dice with her. She tells him to take a lamp from the set while she causes a distraction so that she can bring a piece of the show with her back to their apartment for Kat's sake. But Dice gets caught in the act. Sam ends up improvising and acting like she's some authority figure, changing the address of the storage unit where the set pieces and props of the show were headed to their own apartment, which somehow works. Kat comes home to find all of their old furniture has been replaced with That's a Drag stuff, which cheers her up, concluding the episode. Honestly, this one has its moments. The dynamic between Sam and Kat is still being established here, and there are a few decent jokes and sweet gestures that almost work. But it's also painfully transparent that this episode only exists to justify the new apartment design that becomes the main setting for the rest of the show. Kat is mostly bearable here, at least for the first half of the episode, almost giving pre-lobotomy, until she does the crazy Trina-like move of jumping onto the producer's car and screaming at him in public. It's not awful by any means, but it doesn't feel right to place this any higher. At 21 is #MamaGoomer, which is a really silly one, but I can't deny the charm of it. The episode opens with Dice coming in saying that Goomer's mom is coming over, which is a bit of a problem because she has no clue about his job as a professional fighter. Goomer is also pretty upset about it and so isn't performing his best at the gym. Dice and the gang show up and tell him that they're here to help, but since Goomer told his mom that he is a high school history teacher, it's going to be a bit of a problem to make this seem like the truth. Goomer meets his mom at Bots, and so Kat and Sam pretend to be his students to impress her. Oh, and it's revealed that Goomer's actual name is Mer, Mer being his surname. God, that's so stupid yet so funny at the same time. Sam and Kat come on over. Sam makes one of the worst jokes ever.
Did you meet her on scrumptiousladies.com?
That's just sick.
And they decide to join Goomer's table to help him not slip up. We find out that Goomer's adopted and learn a little bit more about him, and Miss Mer asks if the girls can take a video of him teaching a class. This seemed like an easy enough thing to fake, but Kat blurts out that she should just see Goomer teach his class in person. Back at the apartment, Goomer is upset at the thought of moving back to Louisiana, and no one is really feeling hopeful either. Sam makes a meta joke about how not every problem can be solved by some genius plan, which was actually pretty funny, and Kat immediately after has a eureka moment. She says that they just need to find a real teacher who's willing to give up his classroom long enough to fool Goomer's mom. And then we cut to Hollywood Arts, where we see Sikowitz again, teaching backwards acting, where we see the Victorious crew again. Kind of. Honestly, I can't even hate this, it's actually pretty genius, though it didn't feel entirely necessary. Anyway, Sikowitz ends up giving his classroom under the impression it's for a fictional charity that helps teachers grow hair. Sam provides Goomer with flashcards to get through his class, and Kat dresses Dice like a hippie so that he can look older. The class starts and Miss Mer is a little confused. I loved the interaction with the shrugger. Him not knowing anything and looking so proud of himself afterwards is so funny. Goomer tries to use the flashcards, but this fails, and Sikowitz ends up making things worse by barging in. At this point, Goomer gives up and reveals to his mom that he isn't a teacher but a fighter, which really upsets her, though saying,
When I adopted you, I should have kept the receipt.
Is genuinely evil. While heading back home, Guma and his mom continue to argue in an alleyway, and she threatens to take him back home. Dice tries to convince her that he can be a champion, but she thinks it's a waste of time. Predictably, some thugs come over, corner the gang, and demand that Miss Mur hands over her purse and watch. Guma takes care of them, his mom making up with him and letting him stay in town, walking away with one of the police officers that show up, concluding the episode. This episode is okay, to be honest. It has some pretty funny moments, and learning a bit more about Guma, who's been a complete enigma up until this point, was nice. But the writers definitely could have done a lot more with the plot. Guma's mom just kind of walking away at the end felt a bit random, and the premise not exactly being unique, low-key echoing a plotline we've seen on iCarly before, kind of brings it down for me. At 20 is hashtag We Steal a Rockstar, the penultimate episode of the show. The episode opens with Sam and Kat watching a show, and in that show is a woman named Valerie, played by an actress we've seen on Victorious before. This really has nothing to do with the rest of the episode, I just thought I should mention it. Guma comes in wearing a suit, and we find out that he's now the personal bodyguard of singer Del DeVille, who performed live in a previous episode. The next day, Dice, Kat and Sam wait around for Del DeVille after Guma lets slip where he likes to get his lunch. A little girl on a tricycle asks the guys if they can watch her ride while she gets food, and they agree. Del DeVille shows up and they want to snap a photo with him, but Kat doesn't want her balloon in the picture, and so she ties it to the tricycle temporarily, but it ends up taking it up. Sam gets the bike down with a spear, landing right on DeVille's head, knocking him unconscious. To not get into any trouble, they use a wheelbarrow to take DeVille to the apartment to figure out what to do. He wakes up and remembers everything and tries to call the cops, but Sam jumps on him and does her signature elbow pinch thing. They end up tying DeVille to Sam's bed, and he asks why he's still here, and the reason is that he'll tell on them if he's let go. He promises that he won't, and Sam claps back with,
"Oh, a promise from someone in the music business. Yeah, that means a lot."
Anyway, Del DeVille's disappearance has now made it on the news. Guma shows up, super upset that he lost him, but Sam tries to comfort him by getting Dice to send a message from DeVille's phone to confirm he's okay. Kat watches DeVille to make sure he's not up to something after he attacked her during breakfast, and she repairs Andre's guitar as she does this. After repairing it, she tests it out by playing a pretty cool riff, though it's pretty obvious that Ariana isn't the one playing this. Anyway, DeVille loves the riff and asks if he can use it on his next album, and Kat agrees, only if he swears not to tell anyone that they kidnapped him. A time jump happens, as we conveniently learn through this visual gag of Sam reading a book, a little unlike her, but I'll allow it, and we find that DeVille is on track to winning his 4th Grammy, thanks to Kat's riff. We then get another time jump, and we now find out that DeVille is getting sued millions of dollars for copying a guitar riff from a popular song from the 70s, referring to that same riff. The episode ends with Dice, Sam, and Kat agreeing that DeVille would have been better off if he had never met them. This episode is definitely on the forgettable side of things, but I actually didn't hate it. It's goofy in premise, but at least concludes in a satisfying way. It doesn't do much for the overall story and characters, and doesn't reach the heights of the better episodes either, but it's fun enough to earn a low mid spot at number 20. At number 19 is hashtag Salmon Cat. Salmon as in the fish. I was so tempted to say salmon just to differentiate it, but I realised that's just not the correct way to pronounce it at all. Anyway, this is the episode that makes a callback to a sitcom that aired from the late 70s to early 80s, Laverne and Shirley, a spin-off of Happy Days, with the 2 main actresses from that series being in this episode. I think it's cool and harmless to do something like this, but the nostalgia factor that I assume they were going for completely goes over the heads of majority of the people watching this, considering I literally had to look up what this episode was even referencing. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The episode opens with a lawyer coming to the apartment and telling the girls they have a cease and desist order to change the name of their babysitting service because it sounds exactly like Sam and Cat, a puppet show from the 70s. Since both the show and the babysitting service are aimed at children, it causes confusion. We then get the intro, which starts off with a direct reference to Laverne and Shirley, and I'm sure everyone understood that. Anyway, everyone's at Bots, and Sam and Kat of course complain about the situation that they're in. The show also for some reason hints at two of the robot waiters dating. Okay, I can tolerate and entertain a lot of stupidity, but dating robots is where I draw the line, cause what on earth are the writers even cooking with that? Afterwards, Sam, Kat and Dice head towards the apartment, where they find that it's been seized and they're not allowed in until they change the name of their babysitting service. The girls camp outside the apartment with no other choice, and Kat finds that the two women that made Sam and Kat still live in LA. And so Sam plans to meet with one of them and Kat the other to solve the issue. The next day, Sam talks to Sylvia, played by Penny Marshall, and Kat talks to Janice, played by Cindy Williams. Janice is obsessed with sports balls, and Sylvia spends her time yelling at her neighbor's dog through a speaker system. Both women actively ignore any mention of Sam and Kat, the show, because of a fight they had when they won an award over who should keep the trophy, resulting in it breaking in half. Sam and Kat meet up at Bot to discuss what they should do. Sam tells Kat to bring Janice to Punchy's gym to fight, and Sam will do the same with Sylvia, as a way to get the two women in the same room together. They arrive at the gym ready to fight, they become friendly for a couple seconds, but end up actually brawling it out, as fast as they can. After the fight ends, they sign a form that allows Sam and Kat to continue using their name. As a gift, Kat presents an old Sam and Kat puppet, which both women feel nostalgic for, but they end up fighting over who gets to keep it. The episode ends with Sam and Kat wondering if they'll end up like the two of them when they get older, which aged brilliantly. Honestly, the premise of this one isn't bad. I like that they play with the idea that the show sounds like Sam and Kat, the animals, a confusion I recall actually existing. Plus, the idea of crossing over Nickelodeon with classic sitcom history is actually kind of interesting. But in practice, it feels like a random mashup of worlds that don't really belong together. If you don't know Laverne and Shirley, seeing these actresses on screen is really not going to do anything for you. It's a quote-unquote crossover just for the sake of it, with no meaningful connection or relevance to anything else in the series. And the whole legal angle the plot is based around also just doesn't make any sense. A cease and desist is sent, but neither Sylvia nor Janice even knew about it. Yet somehow their signatures are what officially lift it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just not how it works. Other than that though, it's a fine enough episode to secure itself a place at number 19. At 18 is hashtag doll sitting, the Halloween special. The episode opens at Bots on Halloween Day, where Kat reveals to Sam that they have a babysitting job. Sam isn't fond of this, but is fine with it when she learns that they get paid double for holidays. Back at the apartment, Sam gets in her Halloween costume, which is cat. Man, that is cursed. They answer the door to find a creepy guy, the father of the kid that they'll be babysitting. His daughter turns out to be this doll named Clarice, and he provides a full list of instructions that Sam and Kat will need to follow to look after her. Kat tries to entertain it by trying to carve pumpkins with the doll, but Sam is against the idea. Dice comes in but is reminded that he was going to give Sam some candy, so leaves to get it. But Kat does a spell on him from a spellbook he gifted her beforehand, which of course doesn't work. Shortly after, a monkey is at the door with the candy, making Kat believe that the spell worked. Sam tells her magic isn't real, but the girls find that Clarice carved some pumpkins by herself, and so she starts having doubts too. Kat tries reversal spells on the monkey, but none of them work, and so Kat tries to prove that Dice is still human by ringing him. But turns out the monkey has his phone. While they check this out, they hear a scream coming from the living room, and it's coming from the TV, which Clarice is watching while eating popcorn. This freaks the girls out even more, and when her dad finally returns to pick her up, they're eager for him to leave. However, he asks if the girls are interested in earning more money, providing free tickets to go see Del DeVille, as long as they take Clarice with them. They also need to take a photo of her there at the concert, enjoying herself. At the concert, everyone's having a blast until Deldeville notices Clarice in the crowd and kills the music. Apparently, Clarice shows up to all of his concerts and it's freaking him out, so he gets security to get rid of the girls. They return to the apartment to find Dice as a human. He reveals that the monkey is his Aunt Fijine's helper monkey and that he stole his phone off of him. Dice and the monkey leave and the dad finally returns to retrieve Clarice. Kat out of nowhere snaps and orders him to stop acting like the doll is real. He gets a little offended and tells Clarice to come to him, and the doll suddenly turns into a real girl, concluding the episode. As far as Halloween specials go, it's fine. It has some fun, spooky elements, and the premise is weird enough to be entertaining. The final twist of Clarice being real is okay too. It just kind of makes the episode a waste of time because there's no way that this is canon. I mean, if it was, Deldeville would have instantly recognized Sam and Kat in that other episode. The episode's fine though. Not bad, not mind-blowing either. Just a solid, serviceable holiday episode that does its job and doesn't overstay its welcome. At 17 is #SecretSafe. The episode opens in Sam and Kat's room, and Sam wondering why there's a safe in her closet. She tries different combinations, but nothing works. Kat makes a video of herself for a school project. Dice comes over and says that he has to go to something with his mom and his auntie and can't be left home alone. Sam and Kat suggest that he just stay with them. The next day, Dice says that he's going to play poker with some frat guys and so won't stay with the girls, which annoys and concerns them because that wasn't part of the deal, and so they don't let him go. Sam manages to get the safe open after punching in a random code. The safe reveals a tunnel, which leads into a bunker of some kind. Sam and Kat enter it to get a better look, and Dice shuts the door behind them so he can go to his poker game. The girls kill time by eating some fruit cocktail and using a jump rope. Goomer comes over as they'd invited him earlier and follows Sam and Kat's voices to the safe. He puts in the combination, gets the door open and tosses Sam a chicken puck, which hits Kat right in the face. The girls get out and we cut to what Kat's nose looks like now, which is pretty bruised. Sam and Kat are pretty annoyed at Dice and Goomer reveals he knows his location, and so all of them head on over there, and we find that Dice isn't in fact playing a poker game, but dancing at a little girl's birthday party. They take him home to get some answers.
You know that because of you, I had to eat old fruit out of a can?
I had to pee in a can.
2 different cans?
Was pretty funny. Dice reveals that he wants to get his mom a computer for her birthday that's coming up and needed to make some money, and poker was just a front because dancing is pretty embarrassing. The girls understand and say that they'll lend him the money, but still want payback for being locked in the safe, and so do the same to him. The episode ends with the girls eating sloppy waffles, an idea that Kat suggested while they were locked in, Sam reminding her about her video project, which made me roll my eyes. Look, I don't mind self-awareness every now and then, but it's so off-putting when it picks apart bad writing. Like, if anything, the writers make themselves look like fools by doing this. Overall, though, I thought this episode was pretty okay. The jokes in this were mostly fine, there's good back and forth between the girls, and while this does also fall into that stuck in same location territory, I thought this one went out of its way to be a little more creative. A decent episode. At 16 is #knockout. The episode opens with a depressed Goomer walking into the apartment, but he doesn't want to speak about it. Dice finds him there and asks why he never went to the gym to train, and he reveals it's because he keeps getting picked on there. Sam is angry and wants to confront this person. They all head to Punchies, and it turns out that Goomer's bully is actually this woman named Rita Rooney, who I guess is supposed to be Ronda Rousey, an MMA champion. Turns out she wasn't bullying him at all and is actually just flirting with him. He likes the sound of that initially, but immediately runs out of the gym out of fear. We find Goomer at Bots laughing and crying simultaneously. Sam and Kat find him and he tells them that he likes Rita back, but is afraid of saying something stupid. Kat roleplays as Rita to see what would happen and he runs away. Later, Dice and Sam drag Guma to the gym holding a flower. He nervously gives this to Rita and she kisses him on the cheek. Some news guys at the gym want to see Rita do some sparring, but this won't happen because her last sparring partner is still in the hospital. But Sam overhears this and offers to spar. The girls start sparring and after getting hit a couple of times, Sam manages to knock out Rita. Sam being capable of doing this with basically zero training is pushing it a little bit, but it makes for an interesting plot, so I'll allow it. Dice seizes the opportunity to become Sam's manager, and we find that this knockout has made the national news. Guma comes in all upset because Rita sent him a nasty message because he's friends with Sam and she knocked her out. Dice comes in and asks how his favourite fighter is. Guma starts to respond, but he cuts him off and heads straight to Sam. Man, that is cruel. He tells Sam that he wants her to fight Rita in 3 weeks at this huge stadium, claiming Dana Fife, their version of Dana White, wants it to happen. She'd rather not until she hears that she'll make 25 grand regardless of if she wins or not, which is pretty solid. Dice tells her that she'll need to train from tomorrow and brings over this woman named Bob Stickson. We find her methods to be quite extreme, making Sam do intense cardio, forcing her to only eat lettuce and sleep early. It's been 2 weeks and there's a press conference being held. Sam shows up late only to announce that the fight is off. She explains that she likes sleeping in late, eating whatever she wants, and not giving up everything fun in life. She gives an open invitation to anyone who wants to join her and leaves with Dice, Kat and Guma following. Press asks Rita what she's going to do now and she exclaims that she wants to hang with Sam, and the episode ends with everyone in their PJs in Sam and Kat's room watching terrible movies. This episode is kind of fun. The MMA stuff is a little over the top, and considering we've seen something similar pan out in iCarly, does make this one feel a little inferior, but I can't say there's a lot I disliked about this. It's pretty solid, and far from the worst this show has to offer, though it doesn't quite make the top 15. Speaking of top 15... At 15 is hashtag Guma Sitting, which coincidentally is the other MMA related episode on this show. Sam and Kat visit Guma and Dice at the gym. Guma's got a fight on the weekend against Zacapa, who we saw again in the motorcycle episode. Guma, however, doesn't know that Zacapa's undefeated and Dice doesn't want to worry him. At the apartment, Dice comes in and asks if the girls can babysit Guma while he's away hair modelling, and they really don't want to. Sam will do it on the condition that he gives her more bottles of hot sauce. The girls and Guma head to Bots, but he gets overwhelmed by the robot waiters. That night, Guma gets nightmares and he reminds the girls about his medicine. Kat starts to apply the drops to his eyes, which causes some serious stinging, and Sam reads the label revealing that the drops were supposed to go on his tongue. The next day, Sam and Kat try a remedy as Guma can't see anything now, and Dice walks in super concerned and upset when Sam tells him what happened. She suggests that he cancel the fight, but this would result in Guma never being able to fight at the CFC again. He goes through with the fight with the gang assisting him in the second round, telling him when he should punch and kick, but this doesn't really work out. Dice calls Zacapa a punk, and Zacapa insults his hair back, which angers Guma, who's now starting to see a little. Using this anger, he starts performing really well and ends up defeating Zacapa. He asks for a rematch, Sam taunts him, and he pushes her out the way, resulting in her going apeshit, concluding the episode. Again, a pretty solid one. It's one of the few times we actually get to see Guma fight, and we get a much better look into his friendship with Dice too, which is really sweet. It's entertaining all the way through, but there's definitely better episodes. At 14 is hashtag toddler climbing. I'd say the episodes from this point forward are all actually in that really good to great territory, though I do have my gripes with a fair few of them. The episode opens with a mother and her son at the door, cancelling babysitting. The kid lets slip that they're going to another babysitter, and the mom explains that Sam and Kat's service has a lot of negative reviews online. They check them out and find that all of them are lies. Later at Bots, Sam tells the gang that with the help of Freddy, love that they mention him by the way, they find that all the reviews came from the same IP address, and that IP address is registered to a guy running his own babysitting service not too far from Sam and Kat's apartment. The girls try to seek revenge and head on over to the address, barging in, and we find that this service is ran by 3 boys, neglecting the children that they babysit. I couldn't help but laugh at,
We're Sam and Cat.
Of Sam and Cat's Super Rockin' Fun Time babysitting service.
She picked the name.
It's a great name.
She picked the name.
Anyway, there's a back and forth between the girls and the guys who refuse to delete their false reviews. One of the guys threatens them, and so Sam pulls out the butter sock. Before anything can happen though, Kat tells Sam that they shouldn't fight in front of the baby, and so they leave, claiming that this isn't over. Back at the apartment, Kat makes Dice look younger so that him and Nona can head on over to the babysitting service to spy on them. Sam gives Dice a hat that has a camera and microphone in it to do this. They show up, Nona sings her silly little song about some big thermometer, and Dice is let in. Nothing seems to be happening for a while, with him just sitting with another baby, but then some people walk in holding a toddler, heading towards a locked door. Dice tries to blend in and go in too, but he's stopped by the guys. He reluctantly throws a tantrum and they let him in, but getting him to understand that no one can know about what he's about to see. The door leads to a basement, and we find that the guys are illegally betting on toddlers to see who can climb a wall the fastest. I can't lie, this is as bizarre and as stupid as it can get, but I kind of fuck with it. It's so incredibly goofy seeing this and how badly it's been edited, but it just works for some reason. Anyway, Sam and Kat hit record as Dice watches the whole toddler climbing operation, and shortly after come to the house to take care of business. Sam uses the old jam and jiggle, as Kat calls it, and confronts the guys, sticking her pinky up the Italian one's nose. The girls show that they have video evidence and demand for their Snorch password so they can delete the reviews and make them promise to quit babysitting. They all immediately comply without putting up a fight. Kat makes them all read a poem, and Dice goes upstairs with the guys to delete the reviews. They scoff at that idea, but Sam holds up her pinky, which makes them listen. It's so dumb. Sam and Kat are about to follow them up, but Kat notices the toddlers still climbing and so need to take them down, but they decide to cheer them on instead. I liked this one more than I'd care to admit. I mean, the premise of a competing babysitting service is interesting in and of itself, but with the twist of them hosting toddler climbing of all things, genuinely how does somebody even think of that? It takes the episode to a whole new level of absurdity that somehow makes it even more entertaining. It's stupid in a way that actually works in my opinion. At 13 is hashtag Oscar the Ouch. The episode opens with Sam and Kat visiting Nona at Elderly Acres. Kat prevents an accident involving a rogue mobility scooter from happening when she pushes an old man out the way. The man's daughter is grateful, and Nona tells her about Sam and Kat's babysitting service and how her kid Oscar could be babysat by them sometime. The mother is a little apprehensive about this though, as Oscar is very accident prone. She ends up agreeing to it though. We then cut to the apartment where Oscar is sitting on the floor eating a sad plate of noodles, and Kat feels bad for him and starts suggesting they go out to do something fun. Sam reminds her that there's very specific rules for him and they should just follow them. Kat persists though. Oscar manages to get his head stuck in the toilet, showing us just how clumsy he is. At Punchies, we get this really funny bit where Goomer thinks Dice is training with another guy, and Sam, Kat and Oscar show up. He sees a gumball machine and Kat tells him that he should get one. It falls to the floor and rolls under a bench. He goes to retrieve it but gets sat on. His clumsiness, while super exaggerated, reminds me a lot of Just My Luck, which is a movie I very recently covered on my channel, so check that video out if you haven't already. In the film, this character named Jake is cursed with bad luck, to the point where he can't even do something as simple as crossing a street without an inconvenience. Part of me enjoys this episode a lot because of that. There's just something about it that works. Anyway, Sam and Kat end up taking Oscar to Bots, with him wearing protective padding now. Sam tells him that he doesn't need to wear that at a restaurant because there's no real threats here, which is when some spear fishermen walk in, and someone announces that their poisonous tarantula is on the loose. The gang get nachos, but Oscar can't help but notice that their nachos don't have enough cheese on them. Sam calls over the robot waiter, who's about to spray on some more, with his arm pretty accurately sitting over the plate, but he ends up moving it up, spraying hot cheese all over Oscar's face. At the apartment, Kat feels really sorry, and Sam tells her that they should have just followed the instructions. Kat asks Oscar if there's anything he really wants to do, and he says that he likes watching golf occasionally, and so the girls, along with Dice and Guma, take him to a golfing club. They try to protect Oscar as best as they can, but let him out of their sight for a second to get some water, and he instantly gets whacked. At the apartment, the mom is furious at Sam and Kat, but Oscar stands up for them, saying that he had one of the best days of his life trying fun things, despite him getting hurt. It's all sweet, and his mom starts to understand too, until he gets hit by lightning while holding a golf club, concluding the episode. Okay, so this one is super random, but I can't help but really like it. I love Oscar, man. The way he acts and says things is so funny, especially when he says predicament after every accident. Even though it's completely unrealistic, there's something weirdly endearing about a kid just experiencing a normal fun day. So while this one might not be a fan favourite or a plot heavy entry, it's one of the more memorable ones for me, and so it deserves its spot at number 13. At 12 is hashtag drone baby drone. The episode opens with Kat procrastinating doing her homework, which is to watch the news and write a report on it. Dice comes in wearing a penny tee with it saying remember these, which I'll admit is a pretty cool callback. Sam and Dice tell her to just watch a quick version of the news instead, and they learn that Zapathon, basically Amazon, has a new delivery service using drones. That night, the gang wait around for their deliveries to come, and Nona comes over too. We then get probably one of the funniest jokes we've ever had on this show.
It works. What did I do? When did our friendship take this weird turn?
Damn, I actually felt bad for him. Anyway, the drone ends up arriving, but it flies right through the window. The next day, Sam and Kat argue with the building manager over who's going to pay for the damage, but a Zapathon representative comes in and reveals that a lot of mishaps are happening with the drones, and they'll be paying damage costs, as well as providing half off and free delivery fees for a month. A pretty solid outcome. God, I absolutely love this guy, by the way. He's almost too cordial, and much like Oscar in the last episode I covered, he speaks in such an unusual way that makes him so amusing. The next day, Sam and Kat keep ordering a bunch of stuff that they don't need just for the sake of it. Nona is babysitting a baby by herself and decides he needs a bit of fresh air, and so takes him outside, and Sam wants to return an item, and so she sets her box outside too, so a drone can pick it up. The drone, however, ends up picking up the baby instead. The green screen job on this was distractingly bad though. Kat calls Zapathon, Nona the police, and Sam a fried chicken place, and all three get nowhere with their conversations. Sam says that the baby is most likely at the Zapathon warehouse since the drone took it, which I'm surprised it took them this long to figure out, and so they all head there. They meet super friendly guy again, who says the baby kidnapping is a frequent issue they're having as well, and they head to the room where the babies are held with the help of this guy named Frank, with Sam saying,
Hi, Frank.
Hi, Frank. Kids are not gonna get this.
I guess the joke here is the guy looks like Frank Zappa and is working at a place called Zapathon. I'm sure a lot of people got that though, so I'm not sure what Sam's comment adds other than a forced fourth wall break. Anyway, they enter the room but can't seem to remember the baby that they were babysitting, and so Nona suggests that she fall over like she did back in the apartment, as that made the baby laugh initially. Sam shoves her to the ground, they find the baby and leave. A drone hovers over Nona as she's still on the floor and picks up her hair, goofily revealing to us that it's a wig, concluding the episode. Premise-wise, I think this one is pretty strong. It centers around something super relevant to today, online shopping, building the story around a drone delivery service, which is something I believe Amazon has experimented with in real life. It's fun seeing the show explore all the potential problems that could come with that, even in a goofy slapstick kind of way. And while there are some over-the-top moments, like the random reveal that Nona's actually bald, that never gets addressed again, I don't have any major complaints. It all fits the tone of the show pretty well. At 11 is #NewGoat, which is the episode we get introduced to Guma. Dice comes into the apartment with a small goat on a leash, and we find out that this is because he got scammed, thinking he was getting a coat. He has nowhere to put him and so asks if Sam can babysit him while he's at school, and she agrees. Guma comes in and Dice tells the girls that he is a professional MMA fighter and that he's his new manager. Sam picks up on how airheaded he is and so doesn't believe he's that good, and so Dice tells the girls to come around the gym to see how he fights. Dice and Kat head to school, and so Sam has to take care of the goat. As she's babysitting, a kid with a cape named Dilbun comes in, claiming that he is a big deal in this apartment complex. He tells Sam that no animals besides cat or dogs are allowed, and so has to get rid of a goat within the next day. Sam takes care of him. Later, Sam and Kat show up at Punchy's to see Guma fight, and Sam is impressed. Sam reveals that she took care of Dilbun, but Dice and Kat freak out because apparently his dad owns the building and they could get kicked out. At the apartment, Sam and Kat look after the goat some more, and Dilbun barges in. He asks to speak with Nona, but Kat reveals that she's moved out, which excites him because now his dad has 2 reasons to kick the girls out. The second being that they don't live with an adult. Sam takes care of him again. Sam and Kat visit Nona and tell her to come over and pretend like she's still living with them, but she ends up getting injured. The girls now have to use Guma for their plan, who's having difficulty understanding what to do.
You're just our uncle.
Who lives here with us?
So, why'd I want to show you my big toe?
Because something's wrong with your head.
Yes.
Got a good laugh out of me. Dilbun and his father show up and the plan goes somewhat smoothly, until the goat runs out of the shower with Dice unable to get a hold of him. However, we shortly find out that the man Dilbun claims owns the building isn't really his dad, with his real dad showing up. It is revealed that Dilbun is ashamed of his dad's job selling wide shoes for wide-footed women. Sam realizes that since neither of them have any power over them, they can continue to stay in the building with the goat, and Sam deals with the pair of them, concluding the episode. I really enjoyed this one. The final scene is genuinely hilarious, with Guma pretending to be Uncle Fudge, and the reveal about Dilbun being just some random kid pretending to have power was a great payoff. While simple in plot and execution, this episode does a lot right, introducing a fun new character Guma in a natural way, creating a villain character and leaving open whether he'll return for revenge, among other things. We are finally in the top 10, and what better way to kick things off than with #Lumpacious. The episode opens with Sam and Kat at Bots babysitting this kid named Lucas and helping him study. He mentions how his brother Jepson is coming to pick him up, someone everyone seems to really dislike. He shows up and it makes perfect sense why. He's this really obnoxious guy who says fact after everything and picks on people. He makes fun of Kat, and so Lucas stands up for her and calls him Lumpacious, a non-existent word. He laughs at this, but Sam tells him that Lumpacious is a word. They make a bet. If Sam and Kat can prove Lumpacious to be a word, Jepson will have to stand outside in a bikini, but if they can't, then they have to drink a glass of his sweat after a gym session. He, however, gives them a whole week to prove it though, which is a little long, but for the sake of the plot, I don't mind it. That night, Sam and Kat desperately check every dictionary they can get their hands on to prove this word's existence, but nothing. Dice comes in with a huge dictionary, the Oxnard English Dictionary, an obvious parody of Oxford, and the word isn't in there either, meaning it for sure doesn't exist. Sam and Kat decide to head to Oxnard the next day to try to convince them to put it in. I love the Oxnard Dictionary headquarters, or whatever you want to call it. I doubt a real version of this exists in Oxford, but it's so theatrical and dramatic with how pretentious the Oxnard residents are, to the one guy getting his word rejected by the word keepers and thus banished. It's so dumb, but I love it so much. When watching this, I thought Oxnard was a made-up place because it's supposed to sound like Oxford, but no, apparently Oxnard is a very real place in LA, though I'm not entirely sure if it's meant to be that exact one. Anyway, Sam and Kat go in and pitch the word lumpacious. The word keepers ask for evidence, which the girls do not have, though Sam asks if they have video evidence of a famous person saying it, would the word be accepted, and the word keepers agree. The next day at Bot, Sam and Kat wonder what to do since they don't know any celebrities, though arguably Sam would be considered one herself. Until Kat remembers there is a former pilot at Elderly Acres who saved a plane from crashing and became famous because of it. They head on over there but find out that the pilot, named Stank, can't speak because he bit through his tongue on impact. How do the writers come up with this stuff? Sam and Kat decide to look elsewhere and Nona gives Stank a lollipop, a gag I'm ashamed to admit I chuckled at. Long story short, Sam and Kat find the governor of New Jersey, of all people, at the Inside Out Burger drive-thru, get him to say lumpacious, and the word gets approved. Jepsen has to wear a bikini and stand at the drive-thru for an hour. He calls Lucas a punko, and so he goes over to a group of bikers to tell them that his brother insulted motorcycles, and the bikers then go ahead and beat Jepsen up, concluding the episode. This one is incredibly stupid, but also ridiculously fun. It's goofy in all the right ways, I feel, and leans fully into its absurdity, which I can really appreciate. I especially love how invested Sam and Kat get into this nonsense. There's no real reason for them to go to such lengths to prove this made-up word, but they treat the whole thing like life or death anyway, and it works. Jepsen is hilarious throughout, completely stealing every scene he's in with his over-the-top energy, and the episode would be nowhere near as good if it wasn't for him. I also couldn't help but notice this small man when watching. He's also there, in regular size, when Dice gets hit with the dictionary earlier. This show really loves to make references to the most random stuff, huh? Because what on earth is that supposed to be? You see him again on the screens of one of the bots, and apparently 12 other times in this episode, but I did not of course make it my mission to look. Anyway, this is a really good one overall. At number 9 is hashtag Fresno Girl. Okay, so I don't think a single soul even remembers this episode, and to be honest, even before I clicked it to rewatch, I kind of assumed based on the title and description it was going in that bad to mid-tier range, but honestly, as basic as this one is, I really enjoyed it. The episode opens with a frantic Goomer coming in looking for his lucky t-shirt that he likes to call Timmy T. A girl Sam and Kat babysit named Kim is at the door with her mother. She looks a little down, and the mom says that if Kim doesn't do well on an upcoming maths test, she'll have to go to summer school. Sam and Kat offer to help her study while her mom's away for the week. Kim thinks she's going to fail, but Sam tells her that she just needs the right motivation. Kat asks her what's something she really wants, and she says a Fresno Girl doll, and so she promises that if she gets a B+ or higher on the test, then Sam and she will get her one. After the intro, Sam enters bots to find Goomer putting up missing posters for his t-shirt, with the reward being a trip to Hawaii. However, he never specified that the shirt was Timmy T, and so the poster makes it look like Goomer is missing. Sam heads over to Kat and Kim, who reveal that she got an A- on the test, and so she has met the requirements to get a Fresno Girl doll. Randy and his friends find Goomer and demand for the prize, but he runs away. The girls head to the Fresno doll store, and Kim picks up a doll that she likes the look of, and they find out that the cost of the doll is $156. They moan about the price, but decide to buy it anyway because they made a promise. But when Kim receives it, it's entirely bold with no clothes. The advisor then tells them that accessories are separate, and the total including them is boosted to $275. To make things worse, the advisor promotes a bike that comes with the doll, which Kim of course loves. We later find out that the total with the bike came to $340. Sam is pretty salty about this and doesn't exactly hide it from Kim. Goomer, wearing a disguise, and Dice come in to hide from Randy and his friends. Dice asks Sam and Kat if Goomer can stay to lay low while he takes down the posters. They send him to their room. Sam sees a squirrel outside and takes the opportunity to shoot it with a wiener blaster, but Kat tries to stop her from doing so, but this just results in a wiener being blasted right at the doll and the bike. The doll's leg comes right off and Kim is upset, but Sam and Kat tell her that they'll just take it to the store to get it fixed. The kids end up finding Goomer and kidnap him. With the repairs, the girls have to pay an additional $220, even charging them for things like pretend anesthesia. Sam, however, gets the idea to treat all the customers at Fresno to some fudge piles that Kat made that we learned to be incredibly tough to chew. As they all accept this gift and chew on them, Sam heads on over to the announcement mic and says that all Fresno products for the next 5 minutes are completely free, causing chaos in the store with people running away taking everything, and Sam, Kat and Kim escape. Back at the apartment, Kat finds out that Kim lied about getting an A-, with her actual test being in her backpack, with her actually getting a D. Sam is more disappointed in the fact that she didn't destroy the original evidence, and they take the doll from her. She says that she'll do anything to get it back, and coincidentally, Randy says that the only way he'll release Goomer is if he gets a date with a nice girl for his birthday next week. Kim reluctantly agrees. The episode concludes at Bots with Randy and Kim on their date, and the gang telling Goomer that he's been wearing his lucky shirt this whole time, it's just on backwards. This is arguably the most sitcom episode ever, but I really enjoyed it, man. It just goes to show that you don't need a fancy, sophisticated plot to get the job done. Sometimes a simple premise executed well, supported by a solid A and B plot that tie together nicely, is all you really need. This episode also delivers a message about consumerism and how branded items are often absurdly overpriced, or add-ons that should be included being sold separately, and usually I'd roll my eyes at that kind of moral from a show like this, but here it just kind of works. Weirdly enough, it reminded me of Common People from the latest season of Black Mirror, which touches on similar themes in a much darker way. So in some strange, chaotic way, dare I say that Sam and Cat was ahead of its time? Nah, I'm just deeping it. It's a really fun episode though. At number 8 is #Pilot, the one that started it all, which I knew would get a relatively high placement before I even rewatched it because of how many things it does right as a pilot. As we saw from the ending of I, Goodbye, Sam has become a nomad, riding the motorcycle Spencer gifted her wherever the road leads, perfectly tying into the opening of this episode with Sam now in LA, stopping for a burrito from a food truck. Behind her we see Kat on her bike, stopping to help some kids find their cat. It crawled into a wheelie bin, and so Kat gets in to retrieve it. She drops her gum inside and so bends over to pick it up, and at that moment the waste collectors pick up the bin, tossing Kat inside the truck. Sam watches this whole thing unfold and decides to run after the truck, climb it and jump inside. She finds Kat there. Kat recognizes her as Sam from iCarly, which, come to think of it, actually doesn't happen as often on this show as it should, and tells her that they need to get out. Kat ends up fainting out of fear. We then cut to Sam using a leaf blower to clean her up. They need a place to properly wash off, and so Kat tells her that they should just go to her Nona's, her grandmother who she lives with, something we learnt would be the case from the victorious episode Star Spangled Tory. They don't have a ride though, and so Sam works her magic. At the apartment, the girls wash off. We get introduced to Dice, who's holding bags of celebrity hair, giving us a rough insight of the shady business stuff that he's into. He recognizes Sam and would like some of her hair too, running back to his to get a bag and some scissors. Suddenly, Nona, in a sack and sitting in a shopping trolley, comes in, with 2 kids pushing her. She occasionally babysits kids in the building and is tired of it now, making the decision to move to the care home Elderly Acres, though Kat doesn't agree. She's happy letting Sam stay with them for the night. That very night though, Nona sleepwalks and closes the sofa bed that Sam is sleeping on, which just visually is so funny. Kat comes in and helps Sam and decides to sleep with her. She asks how long she'll be in LA, and Sam says that she's in no rush to go back to Seattle. Nona comes back again and ends up folding them both in. The next day, Kat comes back from school and Sam tells her that Nona moved to Elderly Acres, and Kat, upset with that decision, decides to head there. 2 kids with a baby come on over and claim that Nona was supposed to babysit them. Sam and Kat decide to take the kids with them. When they arrive, the kids want something fun to do, and so Sam tells them to take a mobility scooter and they drive off. Kat finds Nona to take her home, but Nona tells her that she enjoys living here. The girls head back to the apartment but realize they left the kids. Dice tells them that they are Inside Out Burger. The manager chases the kids because they got food for free and ends up passing out. Sam and Kat perform CPR in a pretty unorthodox way, but it works and they end up getting free food for life from there. Back at the apartment, Sam gives Dice some of her hair, and the kid's mom shows up and pays the girls for babysitting a whole $150, which is insane. The mom asks if they'd like to babysit again, and Kat agrees. Sam gets ready to leave, but Kat tells her that they had a lot of fun together. Sam says that she doesn't have anywhere she really needs to be, and Kat looks like she needs a roommate, and so decides to stay. The episode concludes with the two of them heading out to get free food. Yeah, I actually quite like this episode. It establishes a lot of things well, why the babysitting service exists, who Dice and Nona are, how Sam and Kat came to be roommates, etc. With the way things continue off almost perfectly from iCarly and Victorious, it makes Sam and Kat, a show that really wasn't supposed to happen, not seem like an afterthought at all, and a case of actually good writing, which deserves some credit. I think it's also worth noting that much like #favourite_show, the second episode of the series, Kat is pretty tame here, both in how she acts and how she talks. It really makes me think that there was a definite shift as the show went on, where her character became way more over the top and childish. And honestly, that's a shame, because I probably would have liked the show a whole lot more if she stayed closer to this more normal version of Kat, as normal as Kat can be. Anyway, this episode delivers a solid foundation and believable character dynamics, making the show seem pretty promising. Whether it lived up to that is up for debate. Regardless, it's a good episode. Also, Sam ended up leaving her motorcycle at the food truck unattended, but she has it at the end of this episode. You know what? It's fine. She retrieved it off screen. Let's not overanalyze this. At number 7 is #TheBritBrat, the third episode of the series. The episode opens with Sam needing to prove that she did community service to her online teacher, but she doesn't have any believable pictures. At the door are Gwen and Ruby, played by two British girls who were popular around the time this show came to be. Sam and Kat will need to babysit them. Kat gets a text from Nona reminding her to help set up for some bingo game, and Sam decides that she should go so she can get her form signed off. Sam asks Nona to sign it, but she'll only do it if Sam actually helps out and gets a good bingo game going. At the apartment, Dice comes over and Gwen pulls out her phone, which is apparently so new it's not even officially out yet. She says that their dad works at the payphone company and so they get the new phones for free, and so Dice asks if he can buy 5 so he can sell them and triple his profit. They agree. Sam hosts the bingo game, but this is a bit too much for the elders to handle. Dice gets his phone, but the girls just gave him a box full of rocks. Sam comes back and makes fun of Dice for falling for such a trick, and is about to deal with the situation herself, but Kat says that she'll talk to the girls. The girls act confused and say they'll give Dice's money back, but Kat notices Ruby eating some bibble and returns to the apartment with an industrial tin of it, saying she bought it using Dice's money plus her bike. However, inside the can is just a bunch of cotton swabs, meaning she also got conned. Kat tries to explain the situation to them, but she gets hosed. Sam says in order to be a con artist, they need to out-con them, and so the next day they execute their plan.
Hey, the British are coming! The British are coming!
Caught me so off guard. Sam and Kat read out loud a script they wrote talking about the bingo game at Elderly Acres, saying that card 54 wins a huge TV. That night the bingo game commences, a much less extreme version than before. The girls show up, buy card 54 for $500 and end up winning. But before they can claim the TV, some policemen show up and expose the bingo game for being illegal since the prize is worth over $2,000. One of the officers escort the British girls out, and once the coast is clear, we find that the whole thing was a setup. Kat gets her bike back, Dice his money back, and Sam her form signed, concluding the episode. It totally makes sense why people love this one. The British stereotypes are hilariously over the top, like calling a TV a large television machine, and the absurd level of politeness. As a British person, it's obviously exaggerated. No one actually talks like that. But that's exactly what makes it so funny. The episode's pacing is solid and the payoff is genuinely satisfying as well, which makes it all the more disappointing that the sequel didn't live up to it. Then again, it's a tough act to follow. At number 6 is hashtag the killer tuna jump. Hashtag Freddy, hashtag Jade, hashtag Robbie. I wish I was making up the fact that that's the real title. According to the wiki, this episode is also sometimes called hashtag the Great Tuna Jump Reunion Special. It's really not that much better though, is it? Anyway, this episode is an hour-long special that makes Sam and Kat feel like it's actually a part of the iCarly Victorious universe, which is nice, even though those shows had a crossover episode that they completely ignore the existence of. And so do I, to be fair, because it was pretty shit. Anyway, going into the rewatch, I didn't expect I'd be placing this episode so highly, but man, as much as I wanted to dislike this one, I really couldn't bring myself to. The episode opens with Dice coming in saying that he won a poker game, but turns out the spear fisherman he was playing against was betting actual tuna fish, not money. And so Dice has a bunch of tuna sitting in a tank that he has no clue what to do with. This is made worse when he reveals that the specific type of tuna is very deadly and tastes terrible. Sam says that she'll check it out with Dice, and Kat will stay behind as she has a school project to work on. Sam goes to their room to change, and Jade is at the door. And yeah, it's pretty refreshing to see Liz Gillies in this role again. That Kat and Jade dynamic I weirdly kind of missed. Kat worries that Jade and Sam would kill each other if they ever met, and so tells Jade to wait outside and smears sauce over Sam's new shirt so she can go back to change again. However, Jade comes in through the back door and Kat faints. She wakes up to find Sam and Jade getting along really well. They all go to check out the tuna, and Sam finds a way for Dice to profit off of the fish, setting up a motorcycle jump over them. He loves the idea and Sam is willing to do the jump, but Kat forbids her from doing so out of her safety. Jade suggests the dirty skipper instead, someone who is willing to motorcycle jump over anything. Also, for some reason, there's this one guy really adamant to point out Kat's mistakes. It's pretty weird actually. Anyway, the next day, Kat is starting to feel left out by Jade and Sam, so she has this really funny speech at bots trying to make them jealous, which doesn't work at all. Nona says that where she comes from, if someone steals a friend, they'd steal one back, which gives Kat the idea to call up Freddie Benson from Sam's phone. We see him and his mum again, which is awesome, and we get the idea that his feelings for Sam are still there, and I just love every second of it. Kat tells him that Sam's really injured and so he should come to LA. The next day, Dice says that the dirty skipper won't do the jump, but Kat's too distracted by Freddie at the door. Kat flirts with him, he gets really awkward about it and starts speaking Spanish, as he does. Kat responds in Spanish and the two spend the day out together. Sam and Jade go to Bots and see Kat and Freddie there. Sam is annoyed that Freddie didn't say anything, but before he can explain, Kat hurries him up and they leave. Jade tells Sam to get even, she should go on a date with Robbie, and so when Freddie and Kat arrive at the apartment, he's performing I Think You're Swell to Sam. And yeah, seeing Matt Bennett again is also so cool. I know when you look at it, it really hadn't been that long since both Victorious and iCarly ended, but still, this fills me with joy as if it's been forever. Anyway, Sam and Kat start arguing. Sam lets slip that Freddie's the only guy she's ever loved, and Freddie puts two and two together that they've been used. Robbie is happy about this though, which makes so much sense. Before things can unfold some more, Dice comes in saying he sold 200 tickets and has no one to jump the tuna, but Sam says that she will. Kat tells her that she doesn't care if she does anymore and storms off. The next day, Kat tells her that she will jump the tuna instead.
Ha! You couldn't jump over a can of tuna.
Is really funny but true. But when Sam tries to look for her gloves, Kat locks her in the closet. At the venue, Freddie and Robbie don't have tickets for some reason, and so that one guy from earlier tells them that they can watch the jump from the top of some platform, and they just agree to it. Kat leaves, and shortly after, Sam punches through the door of the closet to escape. Kat arrives and completely misses the ramp and hits the platform, knocking Robbie and Freddie right into the tuna tank. Sam shows up, makes up with Kat, and then jumps in to save them. The episode ends with the girls planning dates with their respective boyfriends at the hospital and Robbie serenading Freddie. Okay, look, this episode is messy. There's no denying that. The whole tuna plot is absurd, and Kat deciding to jump the tank makes no logical sense. Plus, her ignoring all of Sam and Jade's invites felt kind of silly. But somehow, it still works. The episode is engaging and fast-paced. Seeing all these familiar faces together again, Freddie, Robbie, Jade, it just makes all the weirdness worth it. The ending wraps up nicely, the boys make up with the girls make up with each other, and Dice's problem is also resolved. What more could you really ask for? Could they have written a better, tighter plot with these characters? Yeah. Did I enjoy it anyway? Yeah. The episode also teases Sadie again, which I know the iCarly revival changes, but it's still fun to revisit that what if. The episode also does something similar with Kat and Robbie, which never really went anywhere in Victorious, but here it gets a small moment which I can appreciate. And bringing back Jade and Robbie in general just to remind us that the Victorious world is still turning is the kind of closure that I didn't know I needed. I like this episode a lot more than I should. Sue me. At 5 is hashtag babysitter war, the episode I feel like I've seen the most for some reason. Maybe it's the rewatchability, or maybe it's just that good. The episode opens with Sam having rough sleep on the That's a Drag couch, and so she heads to Kat's room and tries to get some sleep on her bed instead. The next day, a kid they babysit says,
You're the best babysitter ever!
Kat assuming he aimed it at her. Sam says that he was referring to her, and so the two have a bit of a back and forth over who's the best. Sam says that since they're babysitting tomorrow, they'll ask those kids and whoever wins gets the big bedroom. The next day, 3 kids arrive, and Kat already tries to win them over by giving cookie necklaces. Sam interrupts and shows them a fireworks machine, which the kids are impressed by. Kat goes to Dice to think of something cooler, and he tells her about a new restaurant called Bots that she could take them to. The kids love the idea, and Sam tells them that they could ride with them on her motorcycle, which they also love the sound of. At Bots, Sam starts sabotaging Kat by badmouthing her, and when she finally arrives, she has a word about how Sam isn't playing fair. Sam doubles down on this though. When it's time to order, the two start fighting over the PayPal menu. Back at the apartment, Kat directs the kids to a large cannon that Dice brought and has a frozen turkey they can shoot out of it. But at the door comes a Justin Bieber lookalike, one of Sam's ideas, who the girl Daisy goes crazy over. He starts singing but gets attacked by the turkey. The dad finally arrives to pick up the kids, but just before they can leave, Sam and Kat ask who their favourite babysitter was. Daisy says Sam, Jarvis says Kat, resulting in a tie until little girl Sophie speaks up. She tells them that it doesn't matter who is the best babysitter as long as they care about their work and friendship, and the kids leave. Sam and Kat realise that she's right and decide instead to share the big bedroom. The two think about the layout but have completely opposing ideas, and so they decide to just split the room, with Kat's side being super pink and cutesy, with Sam's being the complete opposite, concluding the episode. Much like hashtag the Brit Brats and hashtag Fresno Girl, this episode keeps things simple. And that's exactly what makes it work so well. The babysitter rivalry gives both characters' different methods room to shine and is super entertaining. It also marks the introduction of 2 recurring locations that become staples in the series. The bedroom, which just visually looks amazing, and Bots, the robot-themed restaurant. While the moral at the end is a little on the nose, it's still pretty sweet, and the episode manages to be both funny and character driven. It captures that competitive but affectionate nature of Sam and Kat's friendship better than most. So while it's not the flashiest of episodes, it delivers exactly what it needs to, and sometimes that's more than enough. At 4 is hashtag Twinfection, the return of Melanie. The episode opens with Dice performing a magic trick on Kat. She then tries to do the same trick on Sam, who doesn't fall for it at all. At Bots, Kat complains, and Dice isn't surprised that Sam didn't fall for it because she's pretty smart.
I fell for it 3 times.
It's really not that funny, but I couldn't stop laughing. Anyway, Kat spots a pair of twins and asks their mom if she can babysit them. Oh, and there's this really random reference to the Three Stooges that feels really out of place, but the writers thought to include it anyway. Back at the apartment, Kat puts one of the twins, Brian, in the bedroom and keeps the other, Myron, in the living room. And when Sam comes with a tub of chicken, she tells her that eating it messes with her brain, causing confusion and forgetfulness. Sam, of course, doesn't buy it. She heads to her room and finds Brian, mistaking him for Myron, and comes back to the living room. Kat says that Myron hasn't even arrived yet. Sam tells her to check in her room, and while she's gone, Myron comes through the front door. This happens again, and so Sam tosses her chicken away, which is when Kat comes out with the other twin, revealing it was a prank all along. This gives Sam the idea to ring up Melanie, who's currently studying. I love how they inserted canned applause for Melanie, even though she's played by Jeanette herself. I low-key don't blame them though, because her portrayal of Melanie genuinely does feel like a whole other person at times. Anyway, Sam reminds Melanie of the Twin Pact, an agreement they made that if they ever needed to trick someone, they'd be there for each other, and so she agrees to come to LA. The next day, Sam pretends to have been bitten by one of the twin boys, and tells Kat that if someone ever gets bitten by a twin, they'll get a twinfection, and will get an evil twin of their own. Kat doesn't believe it. While she's in the shower, Sam meets Melanie at the front door and tells her that she needs to be her, but way crazier. Also, the editors genuinely did an impressive job here with the stunt double, or however they managed to pull this effect off. When Kat leaves the shower, Melanie shows up and starts attacking her, pouring juice all over her head and beating her with a stick, making Kat finally fall for it. She attacks her once again at Bots and kisses her, and so Sam tells her that that's essentially the same as a bite, and now Kat will have a twin of her own unless she does some remedies. She drinks dirty sock water and rubs fish on her face. A little extreme, I will say, and Melanie finally shows up. How she normally presents herself this time, the episode ending with them dancing. I genuinely love this episode, with this arguably being a better use of Melanie than her iCarly appearance. Yeah, she's mostly used as a running twin joke character in both iCarly and Sam and Cat, but she's still a lot of fun to watch, especially here. It's a shame that the show never explored her beyond prank setups, because she feels like a fully realized character in her own right, but I digress. Also, side note, because I know someone will mention it, I did completely forget about this episode's existence when I made my iCarly video, where I claimed that we never saw Melanie again, which is so silly in hindsight considering how good this episode is. Sam and Melanie's dynamic is gold, and watching Kat gradually lose her grip on reality is done well, securing this episode a spot at number 4. At 3 is #MagicATM, another episode I've seen a lot of times. Sam arrives at the apartment to find Kat riding around on some go-kart. There's a bunch of other stuff that she bought too, and Kat reveals that she got the money from an ATM. Sam questions this until she sees a go-kart for herself and forgets about it. They ride around the streets for a bit, and Kat asks Sam if she wants to buy more cool things. Sam agrees but wants to check out this ATM first. We find out that Kat plays a certain tune on the ATM, which just gives her $400 each time she does it.
Well, then how are you getting money out of an ATM machine?
The tones.
The tones?
The tones.
Okay, we keep saying the tones, but I still have no idea what the tones means.
Was super funny. Sam is worried about the legality of all this, but still decides that they should spend the money while they can and head to the mall. They come back with a bunch of expensive stuff, and Dice asks where they got the money for it, but they don't disclose this. He asks the girls if they can pick up some pills for his Aunt Virgine's monkey on his behalf, which he'd do himself if he wasn't participating in a spelling bee. I love the running joke of Dice just having these weird side hustles that totally go against his cool vibe. Kat tells Sam that the animal hospital is right near the ATM, and so they could get some more money out, but Sam wants to forget about it so she can stay out of trouble, but Kat ends up convincing her to do it one last time. But the shop owner stops her, and coincidentally a police officer is there at the store. This officer is played by Scott Baio, an actor known for Happy Days among other things. He starts arresting Kat and tells her that she's going to juvie, which worries Sam, and so she gets herself arrested too. They're in the car with the police officer and a car speeds right past them, and so the officer reports this. He also ends up eating the monkey pills for whatever reason, despite them very obviously looking like some kind of medicine. The car that sped past was reported as stolen, and so the officer puts on his sirens to chase him, and I have to say, the green screen work in this episode is genuinely impressive for Nickelodeon sitcom standards. The cop starts to fall asleep at the wheel, and so now it's up to Sam and Kat to gain control and chase this criminal. Kat gets Sam's handcuffs off, and she realizes that the suspect is going to ditch the car, and so stops to chase after him on foot. She starts to beat him, though we don't get to see this. Back at the apartment, a bunch of officers seize all the items that Sam and Kat bought with the ATM money. The store owner decides to not press charges, though the girls still need to pay back all the money that they stole. Luckily though, the prize money for capturing the guy that Sam caught was $4,500, enough to cover their debt, and the episode ends with everyone singing Kat's butchered version of Take Me Out to the Ball Game. This episode is super hectic, but in the best possible way. The plot is unpredictable and really unique, and the stakes escalate in a way that kept me engaged throughout. Sure, there's a joke or two that doesn't quite land, like the kid at the beginning constantly insisting that Kat is smarter, but that's minor in the grand scheme of how inventive and well executed the rest of the plot is, even if the idea of getting money out of an ATM this way is completely unrealistic. When I think of Sam and Kat, this is one of the few episodes that come to mind instantly because it truly is a really good one. At number 2 is #SuperPsycho, a continuation of the Psycho series of episodes from iCarly, and even though this episode is heavily carried by iCarly callbacks, I think they did a brilliant job incorporating that world seamlessly with this one. This episode is around 30 minutes in length, excluding ads, so I'm assuming it's a 45-minute special as opposed to an hour-long special like the Tuna Jump. But either way, that extra runtime is used really well because I don't think anything in this episode feels unnecessary. The episode opens with Sam and Kat babysitting some kid who asks Sam a bunch of questions about iCarly, very much giving Mandy vibes, and all this talk about iCarly reminds Sam of the time that they got kidnapped by Nora. We then see Nora again, which is awesome. Easily the best villain to come out of iCarly, who's been working out and seeking revenge in prison since we last saw her. After a distraction using her chicken Maurice, she knocks out the officer guarding her and manages to flee the prison. In Seattle, she pays a visit to Gibby, another great return, and tells him all about how she escaped prison and is seeking revenge, and he's surprisingly really cool about it, to the point where he gives her Sam's exact home address. I mean, it makes sense, this is Gibby we're talking about, but come on, you're the one who took down Nora the first time. But hey, it works out really well for that Nora comeback, so I don't hate this. Nora arrives in LA and watches Sam, Kat and Dice at bots from another table, and after Sam praises Dice, Nora realizes what she should do. She tricks Dice in the car park, getting him to enter her car. Back at the apartment, the girls are super worried about where he could be, and suddenly Gibby rings Sam out of the blue. Man, I love Gibby. The way he so nonchalantly breaks the news that Nora broke out of prison and casually reveals that he doxed Sam too is so damn good. Sam also just isn't fazed by this revelation, knowing how Gibby can be. They suddenly hear a knock on the door and they dramatically open it to find a note from Nora saying that she has Dice, pairing the note with a piece of his hair to prove it. Suddenly Sam's phone starts ringing and this is heavily dramatized too, and I just love this whole chain of events. Anyway, it's Nora on the phone saying she's going to shave off Dice's head, which worries the girls, but Sam gets the idea that in order to take down someone so sick and twisted, they need to think like that kind of person, and so the girls visit a sickness hospital to find Neville, another brilliantly done comeback. Also, I love that they mentioned that Neville got a disease from a porcupine, a callback to I Fight Shelby Marks when he for some reason just had one. Anyway, the girls give Neville the note and piece of hair to examine it. He's a little freak about it, of course, but actually gives some really solid information about where Dice could be. The girls hurry to leave, but Neville stops them by asking,
"How come we never heard anything about Carly's mother?"
Alright.
A very valid question actually, because she genuinely is never ever mentioned on the show, until the revival. We then cut to Dice, who's been thrown in a well inside an abandoned house, and we see Nora again full psycho mode, and god, she's genuinely so unhinged. Much more than she was on iCarly, and it's insane how good Danielle Morrow is in this role. Kat arrives at the house and we get this really cool but jarring over the shoulder shot sequence between Kat and Nora, which threw me off. I don't know why, but the cinematicness of it seemed so unusual to see in a sitcom like this. Surely I'm not going crazy, right? Low-key though, I kinda wish they filmed more in this fashion because it looks really great. Anyway, Kat gets thrown in the well too, and things aren't looking too great until Sam bursts in holding Maurice. Nora suggests that the two of them fight it out, which Sam initially thinks is a joke, but Nora reminds her that while she's been training hard, Sam's been slacking doing babysitting jobs. The two begin a fight, but this ends pretty quickly with Sam tossing Nora in the pit, which is a bit of a shame because I really hope to at least see some action. Dice and Sam get out of the pit, Nora gets arrested, and the episode ends with Neville escaping, hanging out with Gibby, which is weirdly wholesome. Call me a sucker for nostalgia, but I think Super Psycho earns its place at number 2 on this list. Yes, the returns of Nora, Gibby, and Neville were awesome, but what makes this episode so special is how well those characters are used. Instead of feeling like mere cameos, they serve real roles in this story, with their presence having weight, and their interactions feeling true to who they were on iCarly, all the while still fitting within Sam and Kat's more absurd world. The plot is also high stakes for this kind of show, and the suspense created with that feels real. Just the concept of a villain having a well in a house as a holding cell is so bizarre and creative that it just sticks with you long after the episode ends. Sam and Kat as a whole is a really goofy show, but when that goofiness doesn't feel lazy and is actually treated with care, we get great episodes like this one, and with the story concluding nicely, it's really hard for me to hate on this one. I'm not sure how this episode is viewed by the general audience, but to me, it's an easy second favourite. So, at the number 1 spot is hashtag Blue Dog Soda. And yeah, I know it might seem like a totally random choice, but hear me out. The episode opens with Sam and Kat going to a convenience store to put up a poster for their babysitting service, and while they're at it, they head towards the fridge full of their favourite drink, Blue Dog Soda, but they're told by this one guy that it's been banned in California for being way too sugary. He notices their poster and tells them that maybe they can babysit his kid sometime because he doesn't like him. After the intro, Dice comes to the apartment to tell Goomer and Kat that he possibly has the last bottle of Blue Dog in California, but Goomer tosses it away after mishearing check it out as chuck it out. They head inside to find Sam trying to recreate Blue Dog Soda, but after Kat does a taste test, she tells her it's all wrong, knowing the exact flavours it's missing, and so decides to recreate it herself. While she does this, the remaining 3 head outside to the broken bottle to drink the liquid up with sponges. Absolutely diabolical, by the way, no drink is worth all that. Anyway, they taste Kat's version and really like it, and so decide to make some more batches for themselves and anyone who would like to buy some. They need to be discreet about it though, and so Dice suggests that they conduct their operation in the secret safe room. We then get this really cool Breaking Bad inspired montage of the gang getting the ingredients, making huge batches of the soda, and distributing it with this sophisticated operation. I don't actually know for certain if Breaking Bad is what this episode is referring to, but considering the similarities between the montage, with them even playing a Spanish song repeatedly saying "my dog is blue," and the colour of the drink being the same as the signature blue meth in that show, I think it's very likely, and as different as those shows are, I love how well it's integrated here. After the montage, the guy who passed the ban is at the door, which worries the girls, but turns out he's only here to drop off his kid for babysitting. He does mention though that he knows about a knockoff Blue Dog floating around, though doesn't know who's behind it just yet. Kat distracts the boy and takes Sam to their room, telling her that the kid might be a spy. Dice and Goomer make more cases, but Kat worries that they'll get in trouble and so need to stop. Sam tells them that they'll make one final batch just for themselves and then stop the operation for good. While the others keep making more cases, Sam babysits the kid, and it's actually really wholesome seeing her just carve cheese with him. We see more of this in the credit scene. His dad comes back to pick him up, but after an issue with the pressure on some machine, an explosion happens in the operation room, which the man of course hears, and he runs straight to the bedroom, finding Kat, Dice and Goomer covered in blue and cases of the bootleg soda. He starts to bust them, but the gang explain that some people do too much of everything, like sleeping, or in this case, drinking a sugary drink, and it's unfair to ban something for everyone just because a few people can't control themselves. The guy ends up really moved by this speech and starts crying and has a sweet moment with his son, who he's been really dismissive towards up until this point, and the episode ends with the gang enjoying the soda, assuming the ban has been lifted. This episode is, conceptually, the best we've ever seen from this show. The idea of secretly recreating a banned drink while making perfect use of the secret room from #SecretSafe feels like the writers were building up to this all along, and it's one of those rare moments where a Nickelodeon sitcom actually rewards its own continuity in a genuinely satisfying way. There's also not a single dull moment here. The pacing is tight, and the unexpected nod to one of my favourite shows of all time is done in a way that doesn't feel forced or cheap. The parody is clever and subtle enough to work for a younger audience, but clear enough for older viewers to appreciate too. Even the ending stands out. Instead of getting out of trouble through some silly gag or a convenient twist, the gang actually makes a thoughtful argument that fits perfectly within the world this episode creates. It doesn't feel lazy, it just feels right, with a good message about enjoying things that are unhealthy for you in moderation, which I can respect. It's one I've always loved, but rewatching it now, I see how impressive it really is. To me, this is easily the best episode of the show, which just makes it a bit more frustrating that more episodes didn't aim this high. And with that, we've reached the end of my Sam and Kat ranking. Going into this, I'll be honest, I had a pretty dismissive mindset. I couldn't remember much from the show, and considering everything I've learned since it aired, I assumed it was going to be a rough watch, and so expected the worst. But after rewatching it, I can't lie and pretend that I didn't have fun at times. Yes, a lot of the episodes we've learned are not great, but there were definitely more that I enjoyed than I expected. And I'll admit, that kind of surprised me. Maybe even annoyed me a little. In an ideal world, this show probably wouldn't exist in the first place, and I still think it's important to acknowledge the larger context around how and why it was made. But taking the show on its own terms, as a chaotic, short-lived spin-off, it's fine. It's not something I'd go out of my way to recommend, but I also can't sit here and say I hated it. It had its moments, and for better or worse, I had a good time revisiting it, and I hope you all enjoyed this too. Thanks for watching the video, and if you stuck around through the whole ranking, you're an absolute legend. There's a lot more in store for the future of this channel, so stick around to see what's coming, and be sure to subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Thanks again, and I'll catch you all in the next one.